Hey everyone, Shawn here, and today I have a 9-iron and a 3-iron, and you can see the difference in length between the two. So your clubs are basically moving up in increments of a ½ an inch. And you know, for some of you, the single length clubs, if you've got time to practice once or twice a week and maybe just once a week to play, and you feel comfortable with that single length, by all means go ahead. I've been playing with these different length clubs my whole life, and I don't have a preferred club in the bag. I feel that all my clubs are my favorite clubs to hit. I love hitting 3-irons, I love hitting 9-irons, I love hitting wedges, fairway woods, drivers, you name it. So what's important to understand when you're hitting the different lengths, and you saw the video we did last week about the different swing planes that associate themselves to the different lengths of instruments that we have. So the perpetual motion drill is your best friend in this situation here. And you see Jordan Spieth doing this back and through cutting of the grass to really get a good sense of how he wants to come through. And I agree with that. I just wish that he would allow his body to turn a little bit better while he's doing that, not just do it with the arms. So, because the distance between you and the ball, and I've seen this with a lot of my students, the distance between you and the ball will greatly be affected by your ability to get completely out of the way or not. So when I'm doing this perpetual motion, I am allowing my body completely out of the way in both directions. So you see how there's my 9-iron. That's where my club wants to come down at every time. So I'm cutting the grass in both directions, and I will continue to do that until the club is cutting on the same line back and through. So once I've got that consistent line, and many of you are doing some X's and O's and things like that, it only means that your body's not completely getting out of the way. Because as soon as your arms crash, the arms get diverted and they get wrapped around the body, and then all of a sudden you feel like you've got an electric eel in your hands. So when there's zero collision, free. Now that sucker wants to track right here at all the time. So you could see that trace right there. If I do the same thing with my 3-iron, I'm going to stay in the same footprints here, and I'm going to go ahead and perform that let it cut. Well, look at that. Now notice the 3-iron doesn't want to break ground as much. You see how it's naturally flowing along the surface of the grass, much more of a sweeping motion, whereas the 9-iron, which is, see, if I come down and adjust to this, well, look at that. So I come over here with the 9, there it is. So that's a lot more up and down. It feels more vertical, whereas this feels more outwards, and because it's more outwards, it's going to be way less of a divot taken. So the contact with the sole of club to the ground, because it's much more shallow, it brushes, and that's you're going to feel way better compression on the 3-iron, because if you hit down with a 3-iron and you give it that same steepness, well, you actually have a glancing blow now. You notice how the face of the 3-iron is not as high as the face of a 9-iron. Isn't that interesting? So 3-iron's a lot shallower than the 9-iron because 9-iron's designed to take more turf, whereas the 3-iron is designed not to. So that's why the Mo Norman's best lesson he ever got from Sam Snead, this was at the 57 Masters, and Mo was out there hitting his long irons after, and then he started hitting the 4-wood, and Sam says, man, you should hit those long irons like your 4-wood, because at that length, it really starts to become more of a sweeping action, And Sam, you know, had a really good sense for those long irons, the slammer, right? So, and now I feel the same way when I'm hitting those long irons. I have a much better contact when I'm sweeping along the surface of the ground. So let's try a couple here. I'm gonna sweep this. I'm gonna go, because we have somebody who's hitting shots there at the back of the range. So I'm gonna go a little bit more down the right-hand side, and I'm gonna go a little bit more smoothly. So I am allowing it to stay along the surface of the ground. Oh, that was just flush, right? And I'm doing the same thing here. So if I allow it to move along the surface of the ground, super. So nice solid contact right at the front of the green. So I feel like I've got the perfect plane when I'm doing perpetual motion for either one of those clubs. And, you know, expect to have slightly deeper divots and longer divots with the shorter irons, and shallower and shorter divots as you get to the long irons. And if you're hitting, let's say, a high fade versus a low draw, well, low draw is going to have a much longer divot, and a high fade will barely have a scuff. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you next week.